You are listening to WTUZ Radio Podcast. Welcome to WTUZ Radio Podcast. I am your host, Rhonda. All right, so I didn't plan to come back to you this soon, but someone dropped an article. Shout out to my girl Katari. She dropped an article on Facebook about Amazon. Yow, chow, Amazon is set to reach the $2 trillion mark. So this podcast is titled, Is Amazon an Oligarchy? All right. So before we get started, let's just real quick go over the article, and it's actually from Forbes magazine, talking about Amazon becoming an oligarchy. And not oligarchy, child, they ain't fencing to say that. That's me saying that. Talking about Amazon being a $2 trillion company, and we'll get into why I feel they are an oligarchy, and then I'm just going to remind the family. Okay, so the podcasters, if you don't listen to us via the live stream on YouTube, we kind of drop this information several times there. So I'm going to go into it again on this podcast on the true powers behind industry. Okay, we're going to take it back even a little further to refresh folks' memory. So let me do a little bit of technology here for the family. Child, you would think, okay, I got it right. Okay, so shout out again to Sis Katari for dropping this. That ain't the right one I want to bring forward. So hold on a second. Nope, that's not the right one. So hold on a second, family. Let me get it, because that is not the correct article. Although, if you saw that, you see how they don't pay no taxes. Child, that's just another thing. Okay, so here we go. Let me do this again. Yeah, y'all see how they don't pay a $2 trillion company. Don't pay no taxes. Child. But we're going to get into that. All right. No, I don't want notices from you. Sorry, family. Hold on a second. Okay, here we go. So this is from Forbes magazine. Oh, wow. This was dropped in April of this year. Maybe I should get notices from Forbes, honey. My bad, Forbes. You dropped this in April. I bet you reconsider getting them notices from y'all. But anyhow, it says Amazon, as Microsoft nears $2 trillion market cap, Amazon is most likely to reach that level next. Okay, so Microsoft is also a $2 trillion company. All right, we're going to get into it a little deeper about these companies. So it says, as Microsoft's market capitalization nears the stored $2 trillion mark Monday, Amazon is on pace to become the next company to follow, potentially reaching the $2 trillion mark next year as it climbs in size at a faster rate than either Apple or Microsoft. Now, sorry, family, I want y'all to take notice that these companies reaching these trillion-dollar marks are technology companies. Okay? So as we move from an oil-based economy, we are going into a highly technology-driven economy. And this is going to be worldwide. That is why I keep telling y'all that the whole concept of the dollar, because you should know, especially if you've been rocking with us with the podcast on the financial series that I have been doing, that the dollar is nicknamed the petrodollar because it is tied to an oil-based economy. And we are leaving. We're literally on the last tail spin of an oil-based economy going to a digital / AI / machine learning economy, i.e. technical economy. That is why over the next 5 years, we are going to go from paper-based currency to a digital currency. And yes, that includes the dollar. Okay? They already have a digital dollar in place. Go look it up. There's already plans to switch to a digital economy, although technically it really is still digital behind the scenes, because the amount of zeros and ones that they have in the computer for currency, they do not have an equal amount of paper cash to back that up. But technically, they will end all of paper currency and go to a digital currency, right? I've already talked about, I showed you the evidence of the Fed Reserve, which, by the way, Fed Chairman Powell, Sweet Pea, we still waiting on that white paper on the digital currency, beloved. Us tech heads and digital currency folks, or if you want to say cryptocurrency, we've been waiting for Sweet Pea, that white paper. Okay. All right. So it's coming. And I'm saying within the next 5 years, tops. Could be early as next year. We've been waiting for the feds to release the white paper, given the results of the study that they did on making the Federal Reserve, digital. Was supposed to drop in July. We ain't got it yet. It's September. Okay? So, let me get back to the main story. Okay, so Microsoft, Apple, and now Amazon is at the $2 trillion mark. Now, for those of you that don't know Amazon, please believe Amazon is more than just selling you stuff on the internet, as far as from a commerce perspective. Matter of fact, those in tech, you already know this. Amazon actually competes. I'm going to say wink, wink competes, and you'll understand why I say wink, wink when we get a little bit more deeper into this, with Microsoft for storage space. And I even want to say Oracle, as well. But definitely Microsoft. Amazon competes with Microsoft with corporate businesses for cloud storage space. Okay, in the tech world, you know it, and I know y'all know this. It's called like their AWS platform. Okay, so Amazon is much, 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 much more than just a company that started out selling books. Child, yeah, we getting old. Remember when Amazon, y'all, used to just sell books? And they knocked, that's Barnes and Noble, because I stayed in Barnes and Noble, baby, with my legs crossed and my coffee. They knocked Barnes and Nobles and the other book, popular book store, I forget, essentially put them out of business. That's what Amazon started as, selling books. And then they moved into other products. Okay. Now Amazon is a force to be reckoned with on both sides of the coin. So on the everyday consumer side, so they've moved into market spaces such as, because some people were putting them up against Walmart. Okay. And then people were putting them up against like the Costco's and stuff. Because when you think of Costco, you think of getting stuff at a great price and buying it in bulk. You can do the same thing on Amazon. Also with Walmart, as far as the being price competitive, the leg up that Amazon has over Walmart, well, it's many legs up. Amazon, it is easy as a mom and pop business to do business with Amazon, although their payout structure is probably not as fair. But I think it is fairer than Walmart. Anybody that's done business with Walmart, first of all, you have to jump through a lot of hoops, this, that, and the third. And your cut that you get from a profit perspective, Walmart gets the majority of it. But if you are a small entrepreneur, because of Walmart's customer base and distribution, if your product is hot or deemed sellable, which if they select you, it would be, you're going to make out very, very well. Okay. Amazon allows the average entrepreneur a much ease process of selling their products. Okay. Plus, Amazon is so tight with their business model situation. Now, those are just 3 industries I named. The tech industry with storage, Walmart with products for small business owners and entrepreneurs, so goods and services, household products, and all of that jazz. Remember when Walmart went into buying, making their superstores? So meaning they started selling groceries or food. Amazon came right on their heels and they bought Whole Foods, which was a good bet. They bought Whole Foods, which is more upscale, more pricey. We nickname Whole Foods Whole Paycheck. Nonetheless, they bought it. I wish they would have bought Trader Joe's, but that's all right. Let Trader Joe's stay Trader Joe's. All right, they bought Whole Foods, so they got into the grocery space. They can also compete with Costco with buying stuff in bulk at a decent price. And let's not forget, Amazon Prime, baby. That was the game changer for Amazon. So meaning you pay this subscription every year It used to be $99. I think it went up to $125, $128. Yeah, I know I'm guilty. I'm guilty. I am an Amazon person. It's either Amazon or small mom and pop when I get the opportunity, if they have what I want. But you pay the yearly subscription. If you order if the item that you're ordering is Prime, you get free shipping. Okay? So that automatically knocked Walmart's model of ordering stuff online. It almost rendered them dead in the water. They couldn't compete. Okay? As well as, although people still like Costco, but those that like convenience, hey, I'd rather sit online and get what I need, have it delivered to the house for free, and you can even set that up automatically on a monthly basis, your staples or whatever, to be delivered to you. Now that's the Amazon Prime subscription. So the advantage of that, you get the movie package. You're like, what? Huh? Yeah. You get access to all of Amazon made movies and some of the old movie subscriptions and stuff that they have licensing for. So which puts them in competition to whom? Netflix. So let's go back over all of the Amazon stuff. Oh, I am missing one. Plus, Bezos is dipping and dabbing into the aerospace market. So let's just go back over what Amazon is dipping and dabbing in. Tech, food/groceries, home supplies and goods, allowing small businesses and entrepreneurs to sell their products, movies, and aerospace. Okay? So actually, Amazon is in a lot more than Apple or Microsoft. Okay? And with the aerospace, that puts Amazon competing on the level of Richard Branson, the Virgin airline man. Okay, so that puts them on that competitive level. All right, so let's continue. So just giving you, those of you that didn't know that, what all Amazon is really into. As of 2:20 p.m. Monday, remember this is back in April, Amazon shares were priced at about $3,409 with a market cap of, baby, $1.729 trillion. Child. I remember my sis. She said, my play sister, when she was working at one of those brokerage firms, she remembered when Amazon first hit the market. And she took a particular order from this dude. I can't remember if he was a hedge fund or if he was like just managing a private trust account for Amazon. And don't quote me. I think she said it was either $25 a share or $100 a share. I can't remember that. Don't quote me for it. I would have to look it up and see what was the IPO on it. Child. She said that the dude told her, scrape together some money and buy this stock. Now, she was young, y'all. Young. trying to put a sister up on game. And she said it like went over her head like, shoo. And so now every time, and she's gotten a lot more tech savvy, because her and I talk a lot now, of course. And she's like, oh my God, I forgot you were in tech, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, damn you, woman. We could be multi-millionaires. Damn you. But anyhow, so yes, $3,409 per share with a market cap now of $1.729 trillion, making it the third largest U.S. public company behind Apple and Microsoft. Okay? Y'all already know who Apple is. There's a lot of folks that love Apple. I used to love Apple back when y'all didn't love Apple. So when y'all started loving Apple and it got really, really popular, it starts sucking. Their base technology sucks to me. Got a lot of trinkets and all of that, but I ain't impressed, okay? That's just tech head people. All right, Microsoft, they much more than just that Windows 10, baby, that you see on your desktop. In the tech world, Microsoft got things on lock. They got them coming and going. Okay? Plus, Microsoft has a lot of governmental contracts. They are heavily embedded with government institutions. I am assuming around the world. Because remember, Microsoft was the first one to bring all of these, what they call the interface or the software, Windows, the window into the computer to allow you to be able to click those icons to get to stuff. That was Microsoft, y'all. Brought y'all that back in the 80s. Start gaining traction in the 90s. Now, if anybody knows that story on Microsoft, you should know that Bill Gates bought that from an original programmer for dirt cheap, y'all. I mean, dirt cheap. Either it was anywhere from $500 to $10,000. I don't even think it was up to $10,000. So, in other words, the base code for what we're calling Windows today was not written by Bill Gates. He bought it. Okay? Hired programmers, and they made it into Windows. Okay? At the time, IBM, they also had a Windows-like software, and they were calling it OS2 and all that, which stands for operating systems. Okay? It was just as user-friendly. Wasn't bad at all. But Microsoft beat them to the game. It was a lot better. Plus, they were able to make Microsoft Word and Excel a lot more user-friendly. Okay, sorry, I got to take y'all down the back down tech lane. All right, so here we go. In a recent research note, Jefferies analyst Brent Thiel confirmed his 12-month price target of $4,000 for Amazon, noting shares could jump by 70% over 3 years, meaning the retailer could reach $2 trillion market cap by early next year, if not sooner, and could reach $3 trillion in size by 2024. Yeah. Phil added that his projections for Amazon do not even include potentially meaningful contributions from the company's multi-billion-dollar opportunities in healthcare. Child, now what they doing in healthcare? Honey, I didn't even know that. Home security. Yeah, I knew they were home security because I think they were teaming up with Ring, honey, now. And I don't know if that program went into play where you could have them, give them a separate code to drop your packages right inside your doorstep. So I don't know if that went through. Smart home devices and entertainment. Child. Amazon's rapid ascension reflects the fact that the company has so many growth drivers, and is still in early innings in several categories, right? That's another reason I ran everything down to y'all on all of the spaces that they are into, or industries. Brad Gasworth, Chief Technology Strategist at Wedbush Securities in Los Angeles, told Forbes. Gasworth and other analysts think Amazon could top Apple as the most valuable public company in a few years. Absolutely. They not think. I think he's pretty accurate. Pretty accurate. Apple gonna have to reinvent something totally new, honey, because that little phone and tablets, child, you're gonna have to come better than that, Apple. And the watch, I'm just saying. Apple became the first public U.S. company to reach $2 trillion in market cap in August 2020. Okay, that's y'all buying all them Apple such and so phones for $1,000-something. Baby, I wish y'all would. That's just the old school cheapness in me. All right, doubling its value in just 2 years, although it took Apple 40 years from its 1980s IPO to reach $1 trillion. Amazon first touched the $1 trillion market cap threshold in Jan 2020 after 23 years as a public company. Notice the 23. All right, those with the tinfoil hat on, y'all know what I'm saying. Sips water, look to the side. In the event Amazon reaches the $2 trillion market cap later this year, early next, it would have taken the company 24 or 25 years from its 1997 IPO to attain the status at a faster pace than Apple. And remember, 1997, they was just selling books. Remember that? Remember? Looking at future growth prospects, while some Wall Street analysts are concerned about the departure of Jeff Bezos as Amazon chief, Ben Dunbar, managing partner, Gerber Kowalski, Wealth and Investment Management in Santa Monica, California, told Forbes that the company has leaders that have been with the company for a long time and know how to run the business as Bezos does. Yeah, you better believe it. They've been grooming them for quite some time, honey, to keep this oligarchy going. And we're going to jump over to oligarchy in a minute. Even if regulators force the company to break up, sips water. So when they talk about breaking the company up, that's usually they're going to charge them with being a monopoly, but I say they are oligarchy. But we'll get to that. Dunbar pointed out Amazon has amazing separate businesses, and a forced breakup can still bode well for a company so dominant in so many industries. Pierce Crosby, general manager of TradingView, a stock trading platform, told Forbes that if Amazon is forced by regulators to divest some assets over time, I would bet they've created contingency plans for every regulatory scenario on the horizon. You better believe they have. Cloud computing. See, I told y'all. Cloud computing unit, Amazon Web Service, so that's the AWS I was telling y'all about, continues to dominate. No one will ever give up their Amazon Prime subscription. Yep, nah, surely. And the pandemic has pushed the focus on the convenience. Show did, honey. Show did. And I predict that movie theaters, brick and mortar movie theaters, I think they about pretty much done, honey. Them AMCs, them and all that, which AMC ran into huge problems. That's about to go bye-bye. I think you're still going to have theaters, but they're going to be at like the small independent level, which to be honest, it's a better experience unless you want the 3D and all of that crap. And I don't know if the little small independent can do it. But I see them not lasting long. During the pandemic, those of us that have like the Disney Plus and the different streaming services and Prime, stuff wasn't even being released in the theater. They were being released streaming. And it was so convenient. And I personally got so spoiled that now the new stuff coming up, first thing I do is look to see if it's going to stream on one of those platforms. And then I get a pure attitude when they put it back in the theaters. Okay? Because they did one movie like that, and I'm like, oh, y'all gonna force me to go? So I said, all right, I'll go this weekend. And honey, the AMC where I'm at, which used to be a nice experience. It was a nice experience. Child, they didn't scale back so much. It was so ghetto. It's just pathetic. I mean, real pathetic. So that's going to be the next thing to go. All right, so it says, I want to watch TV, use my Fire Stick to watch some Amazon content. I need groceries, Prime Now. Yep, I forgot about the groceries on Prime Now. I need anything else, Prime. On top of that, AWS is on a 50 billion plus annual run rate of revenue and is hugely profitable. And advertising spend is just kicking off. Dang, Dunbar told Forbes. What? They don't really even advertise AWS? I know most big companies use it. That's interesting. What to watch for? As Wall Street prepares for Amazon's quarterly earnings release this Thursday, analysts at UBS expect the retailer to demonstrate its multifaceted dominance, with revenues growing by 27.5% in the first quarter, slightly below the 28% surge in the fourth quarter. UBS maintains a buy rating on the stock and a 12-month price target of $4,150. That's per share. Contra. While having tech internet stocks concentrate as the biggest public U.S. stocks may pose some risk to investors, Crosby takes a contrary view. The dominance of technology's market cap is a reflection of the potential future values of the sum of the parts, he told Forbes. Today, many companies like Amazon have not achieved their full potential. So y'all peep that? Haven't even achieved their full potential. And so the market is valuing not just their current cash flow statement, like they might a more traditional business, but valuing the addressable market for their products. Okay, so in other words, he's saying that he thinks that maybe these stock predictions are already factoring in future value. Okay, well, we shall see. Okay. All right. So that's just to give you an insight of Amazon joining the $2 trillion club. So let me try to find, hold on a second, family. Let me try to find, do y'all realize that what $1 trillion mean? Let me bring this back up. Okay. Here go Wikipedia asking for some money. Y'all done kind of burnt me up because you done got funny on who you want to let be on it, but you want to beg for somebody's scratch. So I got to think about whether I'm going to donate again. Anyway, the $1 trillion club, macroeconomics. The $1 trillion club is an unofficial classification of the world's major economies with a gross domestic product of more than 1 trillion per year. As of 2017, it included 16 countries. This does not include the purchasing power parity, which increases the GDP of many poorer countries. Due to the world financial crisis, South Korea and Australia exited the $1 trillion club as their nominal GDP shrank below 1 trillion. So y'all see where I'm going with that? So Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, honey, they so big. They're like in their own, you can stack them up against nations, all right? Okay, so just to give you this in content, they was just telling you back in 1959, this was the 500 billion economy. That was the U.S., and they give all of the countries. Okay, so this how long it took the other countries to get to that 500 bill mark. The U.S. had a bill in one trillion, my bad, in 69. EU was right behind them. Then Japan. So y'all see where that's going with that. But see how that like Italy now, China now, they didn't really get that $1 trillion mark until the 90s. Okay, so the $2 trillion mark, EU and the United States was back in the 70s, Japan in 86, and then the rest of them was like in the 2000s. Okay. So literally, my point of showing you this is that Amazon, Microsoft, and Apple pretty much have revenues of world nations' economies. Literally. Okay? So that's why I titled this, Are They an Oligarchy? So let's get into oligarchy. And sorry, I hope I'm not making y'all dizzy. I got so many screens open, y'all. Yeah, I'm not still. I got to think about it, Wikipedia. Y'all done burnt me up to a crisp. So, oligarchy is a form of power structure in which power rests with a small number of people. These people may or may not be distinguished by one of the several characteristics such as nobility, I want y'all to remember this, nobility, because we fencing a jump into the deeper side of all of this. Fame, wealth, education, or corporate, religious, political, or military control. So I would say that Amazon, along with Apple and Microsoft, are oligarchies. Okay. Let's see if I want to read anything else to this. Oh, a business group might be described as an oligarchy if it satisfies all of the following conditions. Owners are the largest private owners in the country. It possesses significant political power to promote its own interests. Well, if they are the owners of the largest private owners are the largest private owners in the country, I'm gonna assume they're going to possess political power to promote its own interests. Owners control multiple businesses which intensely coordinate their activities. Okay. All right. And so you can definitely go into this a little deeper if you want to on kind of the history of oligarchies in different nations. But we fencing to take it deeper than this, family. So hold on for me again. Hold on. Let me dig the article. So that's that. Now let's get into the meat. Let's get into the meat. Shut some of these windows down. Now, those of you that remember when I talked about these folks, always remember this name, because this is going to show you, this is a reminder to you on how things are really set up across the world. We talked about this before on the Truth Uncompromised show. I want to say at least on 2 lives, the Pessoa family. Okay? This Pessoa family, let us digress back to the time when former Crown Prince of France, now Daniel Pessoa, 1785 to 1860, arrived in America. Daniel married a woman by the name of Susanna Kaiser around 1814. All marriages of this family's bloodline are through all issues of the family to this date. As they say, we keep the marriage in the family. Susanna was the sister to one Sarah Kaiser, who married a German by the name of John Reed, who owned Reed Gold Mine and started the gold rush fever in where? The Carolinas. The Pessoas were also involved with gold mines. Child, just get ready. Just get ready, baby. We finna go deep with them. In Daniel's business years before his death, he was instrumental in acquiring holdings, banks with vast railroads, his wealth holdings in construction from gold, numerous companies, railway companies, canal companies, tramway companies, companies for manufacturing of railroad engines, railway cars, railway sleeping cars, the Pullman, steam tractors and plows, now known as the International Harvester, Colt firearms, wagons and buggies. Child, shut the front door. now known as Cadillac cars. Child, you got to be kidding me. Cadillac, wow. Never knew that the wagons and buggies dwarfed into the Cadillac brand. Child, pay attention. He owned huge plantations of cotton, tobacco, timber, and corn. He also owned the manufacture of cotton. Eli Whitney of the Cotton Gin. Now remember, blood just came over to the Americas. When? 1785. Let's continue. Susanna and Daniel had 2 sons. The firstborn was Adam. Adam, huh? And then Jonas. Pick the nails. Look at the nails. Oh, Adam and Jonas? Aren't those biblical names? You mean from the bloodline of the people that starts with the J, ends with the S? Okay. I'm just a conspiracy theorist with the tinfoil hat on. Let me continue. At sometimes in Adam's young adult life, he was allegedly bumped off, although we will revisit that later. And all of the family assets were set up to pass to Jonas W. Pesor upon his father Daniel's death. Jonas carried on the family tradition and increased the family holdings to include steamship companies known as United Fruit Company, mining equipment. You mean the mining of Mother Earth's precious resources that they continue to excavate as they continue terraforming the planet? I'm just a conspiracy theorist with the tinfoil hat on. Mining equipment company, aluminum company, Alcoa. Y'all know how big that is. Are y'all understanding what I'm reading to you? Mining companies for coal, iron, copper, gold, and silver. And was the main supplier to the who? To the government for what? Gold and silver. You mean the natural resources of Mother Earth that were excavated as she was terraformed, and that has been happening for thousands of years? And if you read those Sumerian text scripts, about 400,000 years, I'm just the conspiracy theorist with the tinfoil hat on. They started the meat processing company, now known as Amar, that nasty ass lunch meat. Lunch meat and company, and started the cattle and stock yards across America at the railroad yards. That's quite a bit, family. So, you trying to convince moi. You're trying to convince moi. You're trying to convince moi that blood, Daniel Pesor, came over here, but it did say back to the time when the former crown prince of France, now blah, 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 arrived in America. He couldn't have possibly been just a regular old businessman. Not coming through the door swinging and balling like this, baby. No, he was tied to the what? To the crown of what? France. Who came out of France to the Americas, hitting them Virginia shores, going to the Carolinas, setting up banking, setting up religion, and then propagating across the Americas? Who was that? Would that be the Huguenots? Would that be whom that is? Would that be them, they people them? But this is Big Daddy right here, Daniel Pesur. Is Big Daddy sent over by whom? We can only assume the King of France. The King of France. So if you want to understand where he got his bankroll, his Skrilla, to come to the America's big ballin', that's how. And they even, once again, remind us, baby, that you have to be in the what? What you have to be in to big ball? You have to be in the family bloodline. But I'm just a conspiracy theorist with the tinfoil hat on. Let's continue. Now, his son Jonah, named after blood in the Bible, wasn't he the one that got stuck in the whale's belly, supposedly and allegedly? But I shall continue on. Aren't the Huguenots, the J's, start with the J, end with the S? But I'm just a conspiracy theorist with the tinfoil hat on. Let's keep going. Civil War. While the Pesurs were busy buying what? Child, let me sip my water. As this other blogger used to say, I hope that woman is okay. I know she was sickly. She's a Southern belle. I don't see her around anymore. But she used to have me rolling. Because she had a phrase when she ran across some information that was, I say, blow my wig back or blow my locks back. She would do it the Southern way. But she had a little song with it. And I just loved it. I hope that sis is doing okay. She would say, child, let me clutch my pearls and gather myself. So shout out to that sister. I hope you okay, sweet pea. So now you say what now? They was doing what during the Civil War? Buying property. The Union government was actively seizing all property and public records. The reason for this search and seizure was to find out who owned what property so the government, could seize more property. Child, clutching pearls. Civil War was not what you all think that it was about. And information is starting to come out about it. Check out Kuimeo on YouTube. He dropped a Civil War. I think he dropped 2 by now. I'm behind. So that's Kurimeo. Check out Legendary Top Cats. He may have pulled it off of YouTube, and you might have to go to his university website, Big Chief University. I think. Check out those brothers. They're giving you the behind the scenes information on what the Civil War was about, really about, who was involved. Child, let's continue. All of the public records were seized from each county courthouse in every Confederate state and taken to where? Bradford, North Carolina. Now let's just recap. Whom came to the Carolinas from France? The who? The Huguenots, who are really the J's, starts with the J, ends with an S. And if you are really up on your game, they weren't Caucasian. They were melanated. Check out those two brothers that I mentioned. They dropped the receipts. So now you say, what now? They seized from each county courthouse in every Confederate state and taken to Bradford, North Carolina, where they were meticulously studied, some of them totally rewritten, thence to be returned to their original places if they had not been destroyed at a later date. Child. So, indigenous people of the Americas, y'all see why it is so hard to trace land that Big Mama and Papa and them said they owned, that tribal land. So you're talking about the takeover to the takeover to the takeover. So the indigenous people of America didn't really mark out land like the Europeans, specifically the Black Europeans, would mark land. So the Black Europeans, the early ones, came over marking land and all that, cutting deals with some of the indigenous American tribes. Some of the indigenous American tribes wasn't with that mess. Wars broke on out. Then you had the indentured servants, i.e. what they are calling slavery. So you had some of them melanated people, Black Europeans, some of them indigenous Indian folk, Black folk. Then you had Caucasian white folks as indentured servants. Everybody's vying for their position for a piece of land, or they changed that they was promised, or to get up out of these indentured servant contracts. Hence, confederations were formed, Civil War happened. But in the meantime, you means to tell me that the pastors was buying up land and they were snatching up, the government was snatching up records? This information was found out after I was doing research in the southern courthouses. I couldn't figure out how the same handwriting kept showing up in all these different record books all across the South in different states on the same date. Let me say that for the slow MFers in the back. This information was found out after I was doing research in the Southern courthouses. I couldn't figure out how the same handwriting kept showing up in all these different record books all across the South in different states on the same dates. Boom. So indigenous people of the Americas, if you having problems tracking back that family land, do you understand why? Those people that are holding land patents and you think that they're going to honor them, I told y'all they ain't. Do you understand why? Let's continue. My friend was kidding me when I voiced this question, and he told me that they got around in flying saucer respecting it. In order to conceal the family's interests from both the government and Quantrill's raiders, the Pessoas, bought things in family names. Child, I ain't want to gossip, but you ain't heard that from me. Ain't that what, some of you men that dibble and dabble in pharmaceuticals, ain't that what some of y'all do? I mean, I'm not just saying, I really don't know nothing about that. I'm just saying. So they put things in family names, father-in-laws, brother-in-laws, etc., such as Smith, Gills, who? Child. This Moore name, I don't give a damn. It's going to show up regardless. Some people say irregardless, which cracks me up, but it's regardless. Poor, Hawkins. Child, no, they didn't say coon. Coon. We actually did a drop on that coon word because it means something different. Paysours, Bashore, Basin, Hudson, Kaiser, Letson, and Reed. Child. Quantrill's raiders were the best known of the pro-Confederate partisans, guerrillas, also known as bushhackers, who fought in the American Civil War. Their leader was William Quantrill, who had married into the Springs family. And they included Jesse James and his brother Frank. Child. Now, I don't know. I can't remember who did that drop on Jesse James. I think it was Legendary Top Cats. I think it was you. If it was not you, it was Cool and Mel. One of you brothers did the drop on Jesse James now. Child, they weren't Caucasian. They weren't Caucasian. They were black cowboys, y'all. Child, you better stop playing with me. Throughout all of it, when forming corporations, he also held stock certificate number 1, which was always a special type of voting. Class A type preferred stock, always signifying prime ownership. Louis Cass Pessoa. Jonas W. Pessoa married Henrietta Smith, and their oldest son was Louis Cass Pessoa. Louis Cass is on record in the library. I know it's library, y'all, of Congress as being a postmaster from 1877 to 1883 in where? North Carolina. Lewis carried on the family tradition by instrumental in adding such businesses to the list as Child, they made me cough on my own spit. Take some water. So wait a minute now, huh? You say what now? Such businesses to the list as the U.S. Postal Service. We already know this, baby. The Fed Reserve, baby. So I'm going to read this again for the slow ones in the back. Lewis Cass is on record in the Library of Congress as being the postmaster from 1877 to 1883 in North Carolina. Lewis carried on a family tradition by being instrumental in adding such businesses to the list as the United States Postal Service, the Fed Reserve, the United States Military Railroad Security Police of Selma, Rome, and Dalton Railroad, known today as many name changes and years of obscurity as the alphabet boys. Starts with the C, ends with an A. So if you don't take nothing else out of this sentence, baby, what you need to take up out of here is the pesos who are tied to the King of France. You know that nation, France, that sent a lot of them Huguenots hitting the shores of Virginia and then going to the Carolinas to set up businesses, industry, banking. Them Huguenots who are really known today as the J's, start with the J, end with an S, added to their businesses. Because remember, they already had, or have rather, railroads, all of that jazz, mining, gold, silver, all of that, horse buggies, all of that. So Blood in 1877, he added the United States Postal Service and the Fed Reserve, baby. Let's continue. There are many different levels and branches of this organization. They acquired huge forests from coast to coast for wood products and manufacturing of utility poles, cross ties, railroad cars, furniture, boxes, etc. And the automobile manufacturing, now known as what? General Motors. Now, those of you who have been rocking with us for some years, and when we pull those state charters, the very original charters that were issued by the kings and them over in Europe to give authorization to do business in the Americas, they were so cold with it. They were so cold with it, specifically King Charles, baby, he said that he owned the fish up in the sea. Do you understand what I am telling you? He said they own the fish up in the sea, and you got to pay taxes on that too. So hence, if you go fishing and you pull a fish up out of that sea, you're going to pay a tax, i.e. is where you have a fishing license down to today. Do you understand what they are telling you? Right? So they talking about from the fish up in the sea to the trees. You mean the baby trees or the remnant trees that we see today? Because somebody sure came and cut down the ancient bit trees and excavated and mined and terraformed the land. And so now you have a kingdom putting ownership on trees? Seems like the same folk to me. Seems like the same bloodline to me. But I'm sorry, I'm just a conspiracy theorist with the tinfoil hat on. During the Depression of the late 1800s, thanks to the shortage of cash that was in circulation. Wait a minute now. Wait a minute. Hold up. Wait a minute. A short circulation of cash? Well, hell, they do own the Fed Reserve. Are you understanding what they are telling you? Let's continue. The Rutherford Railroad Construction Company extended credit to the railroad companies in exchange for their stock, preferred stock, of course, which carry voting rights, and also their government in honor of that sister. Let me clutch my pearls and gather my so-and-so self. In exchange for what? Voting rights, and also their, pay attention to you, land patent waivers. Governmental granted land patents. As collateral of credit to finish the expansion of railroads. When the railroad companies bankrupted, their stock was forfeited to who? To whom? L.C. Paysar, Lewis Cass Paysar, and the railroad companies whose stock L.C. held were thereby under one railroad. I know y'all know this railroad company today, baby, because they still exist. Headquartered out of Atlanta, Georgia. I think they done moved their headquarters from Peachtree Street, which it was right down the street from Fox Theater. I think they done moved it. Southern Railroad Company. Along with these railroad companies came their land acquired from congressional land grants. So y'all, let's back up. Back it up. Back it up. Those of you holding them patents. You say those patents were indigenous how? They was indigenous how? If you pull the charters, it tells you that land was granted to whom? The king's boys now. Let's continue. But so they got not only the railroad companies, but they got the land as well. All of the railroad companies were set up, sure was, on a new lease of 99 years. And to this day, family, if I'm not mistaken, China, you can't own land in China. You can only get leases, and they use that 99 as well. The majority of these leases expired on the 17th of June. Child, let me clutch my pearls. The majority of the leases expired on June 17th, 1993. This lease, might as well say lease, merged with who? Norfolk Western Railway to extend it through the merger and name change of the Norfolk Southern. Dang. So that was back in 93. Child. The Pessoa family and the railroads acquired the monopoly for manufacturing of electrical power. But child, what the hell they don't own? The monopoly for pipeline companies, for water and fuels, now known as Standard Oil or Exxon Oil, plus exporting and importing of goods and foods. The family estate was always passed to the eldest son. Of the eldest son in the family, it was believed that the women had no brains and were not worthy of knowing anything more than how to have babies and entertain family and business associates. Okay, so again, when we talk about land ownership and all of that jazz only being held by men, that is a European thing. That was not how it was done by the indigenous people of the Americas. It was the opposite. The women were the holders of the land, and it was never to be sold, and it was only to be passed down from generation to generation through the woman's bloodline. And if there was no daughter to pass it down to, it didn't go to the son, it went to a niece next in line. All right, so for many generations, the women were treated like mushrooms, kept in the dark and taken out again and again and fed BS. 3 daughters. Unfortunately, for the people of the world, Louis Pasteur was unable to produce a male heir. He and his wife, Mary Alice Hudson Pasteur, had 3 daughters. Una, or it could be Una, Pearl, and the oldest, Iola Madeline, who first married George Gatlin of Gatlin Guns, then secondarily William Worthoff Fulgham. None of them were privileged to very much detailed information about the family's holdings. However, they were entrusted with the family genealogy and kept very accurate records. With the death of Louis Cass and no male heir to his fortune, yeah, honey, this is getting good. Iola's last husband, child, that's where y'all made that mistake. But see, that's what you get when you being a misogynist asshole. Okay? So they kept the family secrets held until William's death in mid-1960. Dang, that was wow, that wasn't too far back. Lola's husband had been appointed by Louis Cass as his personal business manager, and of course, he knew everything. It was all kept in the records in the family safe in their home. Shame on you, Louis, because you should have been teaching all 3 of your daughters what was going on. But that's how you misogynistic assholes do. After William's death, I'm sure curiosity got the best of Iola and she went on a search. I know that's right, girl. It is known that she went through all her father's and husband's personal records, like women do, of the family's businesses and locked everything away, ordering in her will that it not be open until 5 years after her death. Child, you don't be messing with no woman, baby. Because number one, we outlive y'all asses. Okay? Y'all be thinking we don't know nothing. And we done already mapped out in our mind what we gonna do, how we gonna do it, and when we gonna do it, and we do it bigger and better. But keeps on sleeping on women. Keeps on sleeping. All right? Not that I agree with any other Pacers because they are colonizers. But I'm just saying. Stock dividends. The family really wasn't too concerned about what was there because they had plenty of money. Yeah, this definitely ain't about the money. Every day they had checks come in the mail or money was deposited into their bank account from stock dividends. Now remember all what they own. Okay? 5 years came and passed, and the family had forgotten about opening the safe. In about a year of 1971, the family decided to sell the old estate. It was at that time the family decided to open the safe. Okay, so let me back up. All right, sorry to get off topic a little bit, but I want to make this relevant for those that continue to talk shit about what parents and specifically melanated men are not supposed to do for their families. And when I speak on generational wealth, when you have a certain amount of wealth, it is supposed to be set up to take care through an estate, to take care of your family forever and ever and ever and ever, ever, ever. So with this ghetto ass mentality of billionaires now, let me be clear. Billionaires don't have any responsibility to their grown children. Is you crazy? Is you cray-cray? Or are you just ghetto and slow? But I'm fencing to continue. So this family, just again to rub salt into the MF womb, or womb, was living off of dividends. In about the year of 1971, and I still don't agree with the Pesos colonizing ass, I'm just trying to tell y'all, don't miss me with the bull on what a man's responsibility is. Miss me with the bullshit. You're not talking to an airhead. So you thousandaires, shut the fuck up and learn the game. In about the year of 1971, the family decided to sell the old estate. It was at the time that the family decided to open the safe. They discovered powerful, vast holdings the estate held. The family had to make some major decisions and fast. One of the things that the family discovered was the information about the 99-year leases and the fact that the family owned all of the railroads and the lands granted to the railroads. That's powerful right there. But again, shame on a Payseur dude, Lewis, for leaving his daughters out of that information. He gonna cross his effing legs and run the game to their husbands who weren't even bloodline in the family. That's how little respect you had for women. All right, associated with this ownership were hundreds of corporations in the United States. Let me read that for the slow ones in the back. Associated with this ownership were hundreds of corporations in the United States and around the world on the day that the safe was opened. Hundreds of corporations in the U.S. and around the world. On the day that the safe was opened, the family found hundreds of stock certificates where Louis Payseur held stock certificate number 1, baby, type A, denoting the principle of major ownership of each corporation. Since about 1972, the family had been trying to regain control of the leased corporations to clear up the mess that has happened with everything and the frauds that have been committed. Uh-huh. But see, had LC done the right MFing thing and put his daughters up on game, he should have been grooming them in the family business. It wouldn't be such a hot mess. But being the misogynistic dirtbag that he was, now look at things. Okay? So they own all of the railroads and the land that sits on it. Now, technically, again, they really don't own all of this stuff because they are colonizers. They are the king's boys in them. Okay? Because I'm pretty sure the Pacers had to do kickbacks up to the crown. Okay? And we're going to go over that a little bit more. We got 2 more things to go over. Elliott Springs, the Pacers principal trustee. Okay? So I'm going to rub it in again for you folks talking shit about what a man ain't supposed to do for his grown adult children when you are a millionaire and billionaire. You are supposed to have trust set up, plural, for them babies. They are supposed to be trust fund babies. And you can set those trusts up where the trustee is managing it and issues out the assets the way you want them to be issued out, the way you want the assets to move across the family. Okay? So don't try to run no game on me. Many of you got upset with me about the Dr. Dre stuff, and I said what the fuck I said, and I stand on what the fuck I say. So the Pacers principal trustee, Leroy Springs, died in 1931, and his playboy son, Elliott, took over. He volunteered to upgrade the local county records filing system and remove the records from the Lancaster courthouse. Child. When he returned them, hundreds of Pacers land deeds, child. Let me clutch my pearls and gather myself. When he returned them, hundreds of Pacers land deeds had been reassigned to him. Y'all see that? Rothschild relative. Now, we're going to get to them Rothschilds and that Rockefeller. Because what had happened was, just to give you a little bit of preview, they were hired by the Pacers. The Rothschilds and Rockefellers worked for the Pacers. They were put in the position of those companies. They did not create those industries. They did not finance those industries. They were hired by the Pacers. So this the first time I'm learning. I didn't learn something new. When he returned them, hundreds of Pacer land deeds had been reassigned to himself, a Rothschild relative. See, this is why, LC, you being nickel slick and being a misogynist, if your daughters were groomed into the business properly, that would have never, ever happened. Because they should have had copies and the original copy of that trust and know exactly what was in those trusts, I'm assuming plural. Child, I done learned something new. It seemed obvious that he was told exactly what to do to stop the Pesuar's daughters from inheriting the empire. So now, do you understand how the Rothschilds got their supposed alleged wealth? Because they were hired by the Pesuars. They didn't start no banking. The Pesuars them started it. And really, technically, the Pesuars didn't really even start it. It was France, the king of France. Child, let's continue. This also happened when hundreds of courthouses were burned down to destroy Southern. Child. Let me clutch my pearls and gather myself. Indigenous people, indigenous American Indian people. When Big Mama, Papa, and them talked about that land that they own, and you can't find them at the county courthouses, and a lot of us said, we know that the courthouses was burnt down. This also happened when hundreds of courthouses were burned down to destroy Southern blacks' deeds so the local landowners or corporations could what? Steal their land. The Pesur family had now lost control of their empire. Louis cast Pesur's 3 daughters and the current head of each one of his daughters' family, Iola Madeline Pesur, Donna Croom Betty Jr., Pearl Mignon Pesur, James Edward Poor III, Una Pesur, J.F. Boswell. I'm assuming those were they old men. Yeah, like y'all want to say my old lady, we calling y'all ass old men. The 3 families each own a third of the Pesur dynasty. In the early 1950s, Anne Kingsley, the daughter of Elliot Springs, married a New Jersey organized crime figure child called Hughes Close, who was appointed the chairman of all Pesur's companies by Elliot. Okay. All right. So, child, I don't know what type of organized crime Blood was into, but okay. Close's daughter, Miss Crandall Close Bowles, became a director of what? The Carolina Federal Reserve Bank. A battle continues for the control of the former Pesur holdings, but at the moment it appears to be controlled by whom? The Rothschilds. Child. Sorry, y'all, we ain't done. We got to hit 2 more spots. All right? So just to reiterate, assets of Louis Cass. So now y'all know who Louis is. Son of Daniel. Daniel came up over here in 1786 from France as the Prince of France. So appointed by the Kingdom of France. France had a lot of Huguenots come into the Americas, hitting those Virginian shows, going to the Carolinas. They're known as the Huguenots, the black melanated Huguenots, who are really the bloodline of starts with the J, ends with an S. Yeah, that LC Pesur. This following is a list of only 1/3 of the companies which are listed in public records as the assets of L.C. Paseur, which have been assigned to the what? Louis Cass Paseur Trust Company, Inc. Pay attention, thousandaires. All of the companies listed here were each issued upon formation. 50,000 preferred or special class A shares, those being only such shares authorized and issued, which shares represent the true ownership of the corporation. L.C. Paseur owned 9/10 of all of the preferred shares issued of each of these companies, i.e. 45,000, and the rest of the world. Are y'all peeping what he is telling y'all? Oh boy owned 45,000 of the shares, Paseur, and the world, that means the rest of the world's share was only 5,000. 5,000 shares for all of them companies spread out across the world. Common shares, I apologize. Baby choked on my spit again. Common shares or non-voting shares are the ones where applicable, which are traded on the stock exchange and do not reflect the ownership as is commonly thought. Do you all understand what they telling y'all? So what they report on the public ain't really what the total picture makes up. And even to get deeper than that, that's not even telling what was actually in this trust. Because I'm fencing to tell y'all something. You best believe L.C. Paseur and his daddy Daniel, baby, they had to kick back to the kingdom. Okay? So if they are the bloodline of the kingdom, I could see them being very, very well taken care of. But you better believe that the kingdom, they got they cut, and they got they cut very well. Because it was the kingdom or the king that put them in that position. Companies listed in the Fortune 500 magazine as of May 5th, 1980 are noted. Name of the company followed by an asterisk. Okay. All right, so we're just going to run through this. I've ran through this list before. I think this is like my third time running through this list, but for the sake of the podcast, I'm just going to run through it rather quickly. This is not a complete list of the Paseur's assets, as this is only 1/3 of his holdings. The estate was filed in 3 different locations with different assets listed at each state and county site that it was filed in. Yet another attempt, to cover up the ownership trail, but you can get an idea of the magnitude of his holdings with this 1/3 list. All right, so y'all see all the railroad companies? Y'all see that, right? Okay, we're not going to go through all of this. Another railroad company. So these up there was in South Carolina, more in South Carolina. Naming all the railroad companies. Chattanooga and Charleston, Airline Railroad. Okay, those are all railroads. I'm not going to go through all of that. More South Carolina. So South Carolina people, which my people are from there. No wonder the records are all jacked up. When you know your people are indigenous to the land. All right. So, they going again into railroad companies deep in South Carolina, y'all. Deep in South Carolina. Anderson, Union and Carlisle Railroad, Railway, Atlantic. I mean, all of these South Carolina railroad companies, y'all, quite a bit. Child, and they had the one Northwestern Southern Carolina Railroad, Atlanta, and Charleston Railway Company. They filed that out of Spartanburg, Asheville, Columbia, and Greenville. So you, us South Carolinians, we know where these areas are. Okay? So if your folks are indigenous to the land, Big Mama and them done told y'all that you were more, it was more than you just had Indian in your family, that you are the Indian, and y'all had land, and it was taken away from y'all. You should understand why. Okay? Selma, Rome, and Dalton Railroad Companies, Alabama, Mineral Land Company of New York, parent to the famed Standard Oil, now Exxon. Okay? They're naming Georgia, Carolina and Northern Railroad, and it's 99 leased to Seaboard Airline Railway Company. King Mountain Gold Mine and Railroad Company. Honey up in Alabama. Louisville and Nashville. The Great Southern Railroad line, Charleston. Cincinnati and Chicago Railroad Company. So remember, it's not only the railroad companies, it's the land associated with that rail line as well. Okay? Mobile and Montgomery, Georgia Pacific, and TA, Louisville, Kentucky, Pennsylvania. And they said Penn Central Company, which is a $6.5 billion empire on its own, y'all. Damn, y'all. Mexican Railway, child. In Mexico City, Guadalajara, Mexico, child. Missouri Railroad, Mobile, Ohio. Indigenous Indians, are you paying attention? Not only are we talking about the company, we're talking about the rail lines that those companies own, which they own the land. Southern Pacific Railroad, North Alabama Railroad, Charleston. They're saying narrow gauge, Camden, Lancaster, Charlotte, all in North Carolina. Georgia Pacific Railroad, Pullman Company, builders of the Pullman cars for the railways. Although those Pullman cars, y'all, were beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Let's get on to banking. Now let me sip my water. Remember those Huguenots coming from France? Came to the Carolinas, set up banking, religion, education. Those Huguenots who are really, the J's start with the J, end with the S. Who the original bloodline were melanated, a.k.a. black, a.k.a. tawny. Those folks, a.k.a. swarthy. Who later on started intermarrying with Caucasians. Yeah, them. They set up banks Bank of Lancaster, South Carolina. First Bank and Trust Company, South Carolina. Lancaster Building and Loan Association. The Bank of Charleston. The Bank of Cashapp. Mercantile and Banking Company. National Loan and Exchange Bank of Columbia. Y'all know that. Columbia, South Carolina. First National Bank of Camden. Now, I think of Camden, New Jersey, yeah, but okay. Bank of Chester. I'm sure there's a Camden, South Carolina. Morgan Guaranty Trust Company of New York. Morgan Guaranty Trust Company of New York. I'm pretty sure Morgan Stanley today either still rolls up to them or probably spun off from them. New York Trust Company, the Bank of Richmond, National Loan and Exchange Bank of Camden, Riley Savings Bank, American Trust and Savings Bank, Birmingham, Alabama. Birmingham Trust and Savings Bank, Birmingham, Alabama. Who that? Chase National Bank, huh? Chase National Bank. Riggs National Bank, Hanover National Bank, Brandywine Bank, Maryland, Hamilton National Bank, South Carolina National Bank, Jefferson Savings and Loan, Bank of South Carolina, Bank of New York. Now remember, family, the Pacers owned the Federal Reserve. Remember that? I think Lewis set that up. Either Lewis, could have been Daniel. Think it was Lewis, though. Set up that Fed Reserve. And if you understand banking, you understand that the Federal Reserve has 12 banks that roll up to them. I know Bank of New York is one of them. Let's continue. Bank of Macon, Georgia, Pennsylvania National Bank, Sandos Bank, Painesville, Ohio Bank. I just had to go through them banks, baby. Because you also need to enter and understand how they can bankrupt nations and bankrupt companies and just steamroll individuals. Because if you control the money supply, and by controlling the money supply, you control the Federal Reserve, you can get what you want when you want it, how you want to get it. Based on this European Huguenot system. Cotton mills. Remember, cotton was big in the South. Cotton was a huge currency in the South. Huge crop, agricultural crop in the South. Before that was hemp. But we're going to stick with cotton for now. Cotton mills. Y'all see all of the cotton mills. I ain't fencing to go over all of that. Child, they even got the sewing machine. Because when you think about cotton, you think about clothes being made. You think about clothes being made. Big Mama and them didn't want to stitch that stuff no more. So they came up with the sewing machines. And guess what? They own those too. Singer, y'all know that's the biggest sewing machine company. Yep, honey, they own that too. What? Electric and Power. Southern Power Company. Duke Power. Two of the top in the nation still today. Lancaster Light and Power Company. Potomac Electric Company. Huh? GE, General Electric. Gold and silver companies. Y'all see all of that. One I want to point out, it says Clita Ora Mining Company supplied all of the gold for the Federal Reserve. So wait a minute. You mean, because we know they own the Federal Reserve, so they pretty much had their own sub company supply gold or financed their Federal Reserve. Because remember now, y'all, before the U.S. was taking off of the gold standard, for every dollar that was printed up, what had it needed to be backed by? An equal amount of gold. So you mean to tell me that the gold that they pulled up out of the ground via, I say, terraforming, they turned around and financed their own company, the Fed Reserve, who loans money to the U.S. Treasury or government that are supposed to be paid back by what? The labor of the taxpayers. And now it's so much debt. Because remember, they went off of the gold standard, so meaning every paper dollar that they print don't have to be backed by gold. It's only backed by the full faith and credit. Now it ain't backed by nothing. They just print. So it don't even cost them gold no more, equal amount of gold. And the U.S. taxpayer is supposed to pay that back with their labor. Oh, okay then. Okay. Lotawana. Seems Indian-ish name to me. Silver mining company. But the Pessoas own these natural resources that come up out the ground. And they're not even indigenous to the land. Oh, okay then. Let's get to the steel. Y'all see all of these steel companies. Only one I'm going to point out is the big one, Carnegie and Alcoa. Aluminum Company of the Americas. Child, let's get to the cars. American Motors Company, General Motors, Cadillac. Oh, and then Carolina had a Cadillac company, the Studebaker Carriage and Wagons Company. Okay, which I was surprised to find out that Cadillac came from, but now we know specifically Studebaker Carriages and Wagon Companies. Okay, y'all, that's interesting. Child, let's get to insurance. Now remember, this just 1/3 of the Pessoas' assets, as they noted in as of 1980. Home insurance company. I know y'all know Mutual Life. Old American Insurance Company and Williams and Gregory Company. Let's get to tobacco, because remember, cotton was king in the South, baby. R.J. Reynolds, the cigarette people, tobacco company. George W. Helm and Company, American Tobacco Company. Okay, and Regalia de Francis Cigar Company. You French right there. Huguenot ass. Watch Company. Okay, y'all men and y'all watches. You old school. I know youngins don't know nothing about that Elgin watch. That was Papa and them watch. Right? So different watch companies. Land and real estate, baby, let me tell you. Alabama Mineral Land Company. Wood Gin Plantation leased to the Frisco Railroad. So again, they have these operating companies set up, doing business with each other. So it ain't costing them a thing. And they done stole it all. Okay, another plantation. leads to the St. Louis San Francisco Railroad. Let's get to the food and other household items. Child. The Borden Company. I don't know this. Oh, General Foods. Child. Heinz. So now, didn't they say John Kerry's old lady family are the Heinz that own Heinz ketchup? I beg to differ. That is a Passor holding, my dear. And the whole purpose that I am doing this, in case that you forgot, because I want you to enter and understand when they talk about the Microsofts, when they talk about the Apples, when they talk about the Amazons, and who started the companies and how they built and what they did, and their trillion-dollar companies, now multi-trillion-dollar companies, bigger than some actual nations. Them folks that you see, so meaning the Bezos, meaning the Gates, meaning the Apple dude. Y'all know who I'm trying to say. Forgive me for not remembering your name off the top of my head. You know who I'm talking about, with the black turtleneck and the glasses. Y'all know who I'm trying to say. They are appointed into those positions just to run the company. But make no mistake about it. Someone bigger, someone hidden really owns it. And it ain't the U.S. Corp. Okay? Who's to say? Not sure if that's refalling under some Pesur stuff, or it could be another hidden big family. Okay, Quaker Oaks. United Fruit Trading Company, which is links to Grace Shipping Lines. The Armour, nasty-ass lunch meat company, meat packing company. Lancaster Hardware. I don't know these department stores. So I'm trying to just name the one that we're familiar with, but y'all see it going on and on, honey. Wheat flour. Rexall's Drug Company. I'm not sure if Rexall's are still around or if they got bought out. Okay, trying to see what else. Child, let me see. All right. So y'all just see all of these other stuff that they own. Oh, honey, Sears and Roebuck. Miscellaneous companies, Colt Firearms, Standard Oils, and now this just miscellaneous now. How Standard Oil just gonna be miscellaneous, baby? Exxon, BF Goodrich Company, the paint company Sherwin, Catawba, Indigenous American Indian out of South Carolina. Fertilizer Company. I just had to point that out. Western Union. Child. Steamships up in there. Trying to just pick out the names that we will recognize. So if you're watching it via YouTube, you are seeing all of these names. I'm just pointing out the ones that are familiar to us. In order to keep the true ownership hidden from the government and the public, all of these companies and hundreds more were tucked away in parent corporations and companies. Almost all the railroads across the United States were merged into the new Southern Railway. Merger of 1906 that who? J.P. Morgan helped orchestrate for who? The Pesurs. So now who really Big Daddy? Is it really J.P. Morgan or is it Pesur? It's Pesur. The Southern Railway, which contained almost all of the railway companies, was hidden in one little insignificant short railway line that was known as the Lancaster-Chester Railway Company. Now remember how important the railways were, because you have the rails that were laid out across the Americas and the land associated with the railways the pursuers owned. Right? So do you understand why now, during the Civil War, they was going around, the pursuers was going around buying up land, and then records were altered, courthouses burnt down? The family joke is that they own a little railroad company by the name of L.C. Lewis and Cass Pursuer Railroad Company, and it has a spur line called Southern Railroad, which is on I'm sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied, y'all. I'm skipping over that, which actually is all the railroads. They also own one other important little railroad, the Shira and Chester Railroad Company. Shira, out of South Carolina, indigenous Indian. Just want to point that out. The Lancaster and Chester Railway was owned by a cotton mill by the name of Lancaster Cotton Mill, which was owned by L.C. Pursuer. The name of Lancaster Cotton Mill was changed in the 1930s to Spring Mill Inc., but the ownership was still by L.C. Pursuers. It's very important that you remember this one little paragraph. L.C. Pursuer also owned the Bank of Lancaster, which in recent years had gone on a name-changing tangent. The last known names were North Carolina National Bank, then it merged with itself known as National Bank. For a short digression, research discovered that in 1980, George Bush became the chairman of the executive committee of First International Bank of Houston. He also became a director of First International Bank Shares, Inc., InterFirst. InterFirst became the largest bank in Texas and was reportedly running speculations all over South America, China, and Europe. Later, InterFirst merged with the Republic Bank in 1987 to form the First Republic Bank. Eventually, as it appeared, all banks in Texas got into a non-sovereign situation, if you can believe that. The Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, so the FDIC, with the connivance of the IRS, awarded the assets of the First Republic Bank to the North Carolina National Bank in exchange for no payment whatsoever on the part of the NCNB. Why should they have to pay themselves? Exactly. So it's the same bank. National Bank, which is reputedly a darling of the intelligence community, which is not quite right, but makes some sense, being as the bank, child, and Alphabet Boys start with a C, end with an A, are owned by the railroads, child. I ain't want to gossip, but you ain't heard that from me, that them bushes ain't no joke. They had their hands dipping and dabbing into quite a few things. I don't know this for sure, and it could totally be wrong, but supposedly and allegedly, I don't know this for sure, some underworld activities as well. Okay? Daddy Bush had deep ties to the Alphabet Boys. And you may want to pick up a book Call Dark Alliance by Gary Webb to get the specifics. I'm just saying, I ain't one to gossip and you ain't heard that from me. Paysource also owns Southern Power Company, which is today known as Southern Company. Okay, so y'all in Atlanta, y'all know. Y'all know. Ain't that who in the city of Atlanta we got to pay that power bill to? And owns the control of all power companies in the United States by law that states that only railroads can... Child, shut the front door. You say what now? Let me just reread that. Paysource also owns Southern Power Company, which is today known as Southern Company, and owns the control of all power companies in the United States by law that states that only railroads can manufacture electricity. That is why everyone that comes up with a better and cheaper form of energy and would become a threat to the power company is put out of business. Because the railroad has a monopoly at least until the 99-year leases are up. Child. So if the lease expired in 1993, who re-signed that lease? Child, I'm fencing to continue. Paysource owned the Lancaster Manufacture Company, which controlled the production of all wood products such as railroad tires, railroad cars, service poles, furniture, paper, etc. This is where the railroad land grants came in. The what? The what? The railroad land grants come in with such names as Boise Cascade, Weyerhaeuser, and Crown Zillerback. Meade, Regency, companies using the railroad land leased to them only from Paysource to produce trees for wood products. These companies do not own the land. These companies do not own the land. They operate under leases. They do not have the right to sell the railroads or timber land that they use. That's how you set up irrevocable trust. The term own nothing, control everything. That's the power of their trust in their European systems. So meaning if you have land, family land that you want to keep, big mama and them land, that's the way you got to set it up. But I'll continue. Because ain't none of this stuff that they're doing, the pursuers are doing, is legal. They are the colonizers. They were put on by the kings now. But nonetheless, I'm just telling you what the millionaires and billionaires and trillionaires do. L.C. Paysource also owned a company by the name of the Lancaster Cotton Oil. This company started the manufacture of fertilizer and other related items. Leroy Springs was appointed the president of all L.C. Paysource companies to oversee them. He was also L.C. Paysource attorney and trustee for his affairs. He was trusted with all kinds of important documents, affidavits, and secrets as to who the true owners of these companies were. Okay? Which would make sense if he's the trustee. Although shame on Lewis Cass, because his daughter should have known all of that as well. But we'll continue. Remember that it was stated earlier that the Northerners couldn't get the Southern people to work for them. So the Northerners would appoint the old ex-Confederate officers to run companies owned by the Yankees after the what? The Civil War and all the confiscations. This is how Leroy Springs got involved with the Lancaster Cotton Mill and the other companies. He was the what? The what? The manager, not the owner. Okay, we got one last thing. I know this long, y'all. Bear with a sister, because I want you all to enter and understand. When they talk about the Microsoft, they talk about the Apple, they talk about the Amazons, they talk about the Walmarts. And Walmart now is small in comparison to the three that I just named. Those are appointed positions, not the true owners. Now, do I know this for sure? Nah, but based on what I'm reading and how we know the true history of this country that they call in a country, I call a corporation, was constructed and colonized, and how if you follow the true money sources, you see how they operate and move. I don't see why that would be any different. If the United States don't even own the Federal Reserve, now I don't believe that the motherfolk own that company. I believe those companies, plural, I believe they are appointed. Hence is why Bezos can go on somewhere and chill like a villain, and they just appoint another person into that position. Because there is another holding company to Amazon, and I'm sure Apple, and I'm sure Microsoft, that is private, that is hidden from the public. Because when a company is private and it is held in trust, you don't have to tell them an MFing thing. Now that's based on European system. That's why when they came after Trump card, telling him he better reveal his assets, baby, he had that comb over and was smirking with that orange grin, like, yeah, okay. I ain't got to tell you a mother effing thing, because my stuff is up in trust. He even held a press conference and brought out the supposed folders, which was quite thick of a stack, with all of his trusts, plural, companies. So he didn't have to tell them a mother effing thing. All right. So we're going to go back a little further. We're going to back it up. This is going to be the last thing, y'all. Those of you that do your research, that does your true research and knows your true history, you should know what the Virginia company is, baby. You should know. So Pacers - Virginia Company. The charter to the Virginia Company granted by who? Granted by whom? King James? Huh? You mean King James that said he's a Roman? That King James? You mean the King James that said he is Jacob? You mean that King James? You mean King James whose mama name and mama and them are stewards? Are stewards / Ross? You mean the King James who's really melanated? Let's continue. The charter to the Virginia Company granted by King James provided for the incorporations of two companies, the London Company and the Plymouth Company. It was the London Company that established the first permanent colony in what? Back it up. The Americas. The expedition of 120 settlers who left England in December 1606 and made their first landfall at Cape Henry, April 29, 1607, and planted a colony at Jamestown, May 14th. Child, let me sip my water. So that was a black man, a black European man that came over here doing incorporations for the purpose of doing business on the American soil, establishing the first colony. Okay? You want to get deeper into that story? You can go to Truth UnCompromised. We did a drop on the black nobility, the forgotten black nobility of Europe. And we gave you the sources of our material. But let's continue. As is always the case, the passage of time and the development of the technology of the times gradually brought the prospects of travel to the New World closer to the average man off the street. In anticipation of the flood of people to the New World, which was in time not too far off, inevitable, and order in to take advantage of the possibility for what? For what? For trade and commerce. This is about trade and commerce. For the purpose of whom? For the purpose of whom? The king's them. The king's them. Right? It ain't about nothing more, although it's deeper on an spiritual esoteric side, but let's just go and stick on this side for now. All right. So it said of the possibilities for trade and commerce which would then be afforded. In 1604, a group of prominent statesmen, businessmen, merchants, financiers, and manufacturers assembled in Greenwich in the county of Kent, England, to create and form a corporation, joint stock company and body politic, which was to be known as what? The Virginia Company. Given that the New World was an extension of the what? Child, let me sip my water. I'm quite parched. The New World, it was an extension of what? The British Empire. Across the sea and the colonies formed therein were operating under the auspices of the what? Virginia Company. The criminal courts in the new colonies were therefore and thereby to operate under admiralty law, the law of the sea. Because remember, this is commerce. The civil courts, those of chancery and equity, were to be operated under what? Common law, the law of the land. So, y'all want to talk to me about what about that Constitution and what it's supposedly and allegedly supposed to be for whom and what it's supposed to be doing? Let's continue. The criminal courts of the United States still operate under admiralty law. The purpose of the Virginia Company, as are all corporation and business organizations, the Virginia Company was formed for several purposes, the primary one of which was to make a profit. You don't say. Other secondary purposes was to afford various and sundry people from royal to commoner the opportunity to invest in the shares of the corporation in the hope of making a profit. Child, that's what I call the scheme, the Ponzi scheme, because you hoping to make a profit by dividends or capital gains, or simply the enjoyment of their fruits of their labors. and the opportunity and vehicle for the raising of venture capital to support various adventures-oriented enterprises of exploration and settlement. The Virginia company, given that its primary stockholders and chief executive officer, CEO, was none other than whom? The King James I, King of England, Scotland, France, and Ireland, on the date of April 10th, 1606. Now, let's back it up. When did Daniel Purcell hit the shorelines of the Americas? Wasn't that 1786? And they said he was the Prince of France. And I told you whom come up out of France. It was the Huguenots. Who are the J's? Start with the J, end with the S. And they are swarthy. They are melanated. And here they're telling you that the Virginia Company was formed by King James back up in the 1600s. And King James is the King of England, Scotland, and what? France and Ireland. Had at its disposal all kinds and types of legal, commercial, and other experts and consultants who were ready and willing to offer their services in the service of the company, and therefore the crown. See, you have to use critical thinking. So I say again, these trillion-dollar companies that they talking about, the Microsoft, the Apple, the Amazon, you better believe, baby, those positions are appointed and they roll the kickback. You gonna run the crown, the kings, them they ends. You best believe you gonna run them their ends. It says, had at its disposal all kinds of types of legal, commercial, and other experts and consultants who were ready and willing to offer their services in the service of the company. What is the company? The Virginia Company. The Virginia Company that did what? Came over here. James put that charter together, that authorization to do business in the Americas. So that means any business, any commerce that's run all up and through this MF, he gonna get his cut. Him and his. Forever, 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 ever, ever, ever. The original charter of the Virginia Company was written and completed by April 10th, 1606. As has already been stated, but later to afford change to meet the varying environmental circumstances. 2 subsequent charters were developed and adopted, and in addition, several seats of royal orders, ordinances, and constitutions were also interceded. The main point and topics covered by these 3 charters and the various royal orders, ordinances, and constitutions are as follows. Let me take a sip. Again, this is about commerce. Commerce for who's ultimately benefiting? The crown. England, Scotland, France, Ireland. The crown. Okay? Let's be clear. It ain't about no constitution. Let's continue. The first charter of the Virginia Company. Colonial position and size. The first charter gave the king's permission and license to several petitioners for them to create several plantations in 2 colonies, which were to be formed on the mainlands of the east coast of the American continents from the latitude of 34 degrees north of the equator, approximately Carolina Beach, south of Wilmington, North Carolina, to 45 degrees north of the equator, about where the present Canada-U.S. border is in the state of Virginia. Boom. So when y'all want to talk to me about constitutions, land ownership, land patents, that's why I say you got to know what you're talking about. Have y'all even pulled them charters? Do you all even know how these particular, what they call in states, got where they are? You got to even go further back than when the, quote, United States was formed. This is about commerce. Still not right, because at the end of the day, these are indigenous people's lands and resources that were stolen. But let's continue. In that part of America commonly called Virginia, and in other parts of or territories in America either appertaining to us or which are now actually possessed by any Christian prince or people, and the same colony was to include any islands offshore of the mainland within 100 miles of the shoreline and between the same above mentioned latitudes. There were initially to be formed 2 colonies. Colony number 1 was to be composed of several and diverse knights, gentlemen and merchants, and other adventurers of our city of London and elsewhere, and was to be situated in that same area between 34 degrees north of the equator, 41 degrees north of the equator, and for distance, north and south along the coast of the original point of settlement of 50 miles, and a distant inland from the coast, 100 miles. The second colony was to be made up of sundry knights, gentlemen, merchants, and other adventurers of our cities of Bristol and Exeter, and of our town of Plymouth, and of other places which do join themselves unto that colony, and was to be situated in the same area between 38 degrees north of the equator to 45 degrees north of the equator, and for a distance north and south along the coast of the original point of the settlement of 50 miles, and a distance inland from the coast of 100 miles. So, they were pretty detailed to me. They laid it out and mapped it out pretty detailed, and even told you who was supposed to be running things. Let's continue. Each of the 2 original colonies thereby settled could be placed anywhere on the American coastline within the given parameters, and would, when mapped and laid out, form 2 square miles each, 10,000 square miles, and each with 4 sides, each side being 100 miles long. And there was to be at least 100 miles between the 2 colonies. Okay, so again, that's why y'all got to pull them original charters. Don't stop your research. Don't base it on what somebody done set up and told you. Go pull them charters and stuff for yourself. Let's continue. There were to be formed 3 councils, one of each in the relative colonies, and one overseeing council formed in England. The 2 colonial councils, one in each colony, were to be composed of 13 members appointed to the council by the overseeing council in England, and both these councils were to answer to the overseeing council in England. The overseeing council was to be composed of 13 members, each member to be appointed by who? By whom? The king himself and his heirs and successors. So do y'all understand how this was set up? It was about commerce. It's about commerce on behalf of the crown and his people forever and ever and ever and ever, ever, ever. Natural resources. The colonists were to have all the land, soils. The colonists were to have all land, soils, grounds, haven, ports, rivers, mine, minerals, woods, marshes, water. I told you fishing. I told you, baby, they said even the fish up in the sea. Commodities and heteromints whatsoever. But such riches were to be had at an expense. This expense was to form part of the contract, which was to be binding upon anyone who was one of the original formers of the Virginia Company, or any of their heirs or successors or assignees, or anyone their successors and assignees who later joined the Virginia Company, or any of either of their two or future colonies, as it was explained in 2 paragraphs, child. Told y'all, you got to pull them charters. And moreover, we do grant and agree for us, our heirs and successors, that the said several council of and for the said several colonies shall and lawfully may, by virtue hereof, from time to time without interruption of us, our heirs or successors, give and take order to dig, mine, and search for all manners of mines of what? Gold, silver, and copper. Now, if you are into ancient text, if you are into the Sumerian tablets and they talk about these beings, which we're getting deeper into that, just finding out that they were basically humans that had high tech that were able to teleport into the realm, came to originally mine for what? Gold. And they mined and they terraformed the land. And now you fast forward some change, and that was 400,000 something years ago. You fast forward in the 1600s, and you have this particular kingdom coming saying, look, I don't give a damn that your folks done been on this land for hundreds of thousands of years. More than 400,000 years. I came and I have the right to all of the trees, all of the land, all of the minerals. And I can dig and I can mine for the minerals, even the fish up in the sea. And that's going to happen for me and mine forever and forever, ever, ever. As well, within any parts of that, there said several colonies, as of the said many lands on the backside of the same colonies. And to have and enjoy the gold, silver, and copper to be gotten there to the use and behoove of the same colonies and the plantation thereof, yielding therefore yearly to us our heirs and successors. The 50 parts per hundred only of all the same gold and silver, and the 15 parts per 100 of the same copper to be gotten or had, as is aforesaid, and without any of the manner of profit or account to be given or yielded to us, our heirs, or our successors, for or in our respective time. Child, let me pause right quick. Child, they done made my nose congested with all that. Let me pause. All right. And that they shall or lawfully may establish and cause to be made a coin. To be made a coin to pass current. Remember, this is Admiralty law. The law of the say. May establish and cause to be made a coin to pass current there between the people of those several colonies, for the mere ease of traffic and bargaining between and among them, and the whom the natives there, of such metal and in such manner and form as the same several council there shall limit and appoint. To belabor the point, and for clarity of understanding for the reader who does not quite grasp the significance of these two paragraphs, and for the clarification of some statements made in some of the future chapters of this book, please note that the 50% of all gold and silver, and 15% of all copper. You know them, the indigenous original Indians are called the copper colored people, which was to thereafter be extracted from the ground, belong under the terms of the Virginia Company Covenant to the English crown, and was to be transported back to where? To England on an annual basis. Do y'all understand what they done said? 50% of the gold and silver, 15% of the copper. Yeah, that copper that looked like the copper colored people of the indigenous American Indian, which they gonna try to convince you are the people today that look Hispanic to me. They sure in the hell ain't copper color. But okay, I'll get back on the topic. You mean all of those natural resources that come up out of the earth, under the land, that the indigenous American Indian copper color people have been on for thousands of years, that Europe had a right to come over and extract that stuff? Oh, okay. This covenant is still in force today for all honorable men and descendants of the original colonial founders, and the descendants of all those who later were to join the Virginia Company. Imports, duties, imposts, and exercise. The colonists were empowered to seize any ship, vessel, merchant, or trader who was found to be trading goods and commodities with the colony or members of the colony, and if the trader was not a member of that particular colony, to charge the trader a duty, impost, or exercise, which was to be paid to the treasurer of the colony. So they was taxing them. If the trader was so subject to payment of the duty was a subject of the British crown, then the amount of the duty to be paid to the trader was to be 2.5% on the value of anything traded. If he was not a subject of the British crown, then the amount of duty to be paid was 5%. These duties imposed and exercised for a period of 21 years from the date of the formation of the Virginia Company were to be used by the colonies which collected them for the sole and exclusive use of the colony, and thereafter the money from such duties was to be paid directly to the agent of the crown, who was appointed by the crown, specifically for the purpose of acting as the crown's treasurer in that colony. Exports. No colonist could transport any goods, chattel, commodity, or such out of the colony for sale or trade with any foreign person or entity or country without the express and prior permission of the Crown of England, and to do so would cause the total forfeiture of all that exporter's assets and a ship or vessel or vehicle which transported him and his wares. So in other words, you wasn't finna ship no assets up out of the Americas without authorization, because the king them had to get they take. Land, tenements, and hereditaments. Of course, the colonists would need to cultivate the land and grow the food necessary for their survival, so that the end of the statement, and finally we do for us, our heirs and successors, grant and agree that we, our heirs and successors, shall, by letter patents, bearing the great seal of England, grant unto such persons, the council, their heirs and their assignees, all the lands, tenements, and hereditaments, which shall be within the precincts limited for the colony 10,000 square miles in a square, with each side being 100 mile long, as is aforesaid, to be holden of us, our heirs and successors, as of the manor of East Greenwich and the county of Kent and Free Sockvich only, and not in Capite, was entered into the first charter. Mm-hmm. So y'all notice them land patents again, like I told you, where they had come from and who they were originally given to. The statement to be holding of us in Free Sockridge only and not in Capite meant that the colonists were granted the land under a deed of trust, and they could not claim ownership of the land. Ownership was retained by the crown. They could use the land for themselves and pass the perpetual use of their particular piece of land to their heirs and successors by blood, marriage, or adoption, and assignees. They could sell the perpetual use or part or all of their piece of land to someone, but the original ownership of the land claimed and retained by whom? The crown. So now again, let me sip my water. What you want to tell me about some land patents? How is land patent, deed of trust, land grants, how's that related to the indigenous people of the Americas, the indigenous copper-colored people of Americas? You better do your research. You better know what you're talking about. You better know what you're doing when you try to roll up in somebody's courtroom system talking that nonsense. You better know, because this is serious business. You better hope that at a minimum they will laugh in your face and say, what are you talking about? Go head on with that, instead of them locking you up or trying to put some charges on you for fraud. You better do your research. Now let's continue. The royal orders of November 20th, 1606, the first paragraph of this letter appoints the King's Council of Virginia and England and gives them, the council, a general description of their duties toward the two separate councils and colonies in Virginia. They were to nominate and appoint the members of the council and the two first settled colonies, to cause each other of the two councils to nominate and appoint one of their own members, not being a minister of God's word, to be the president of his respective council. Damn, y'all, they didn't even want no preachers in them. Child, I'm cracking up on that. We don't want no preachers. You can't hold that seat of office. To be president of his respective council, with the position to be held for 1 year maximum, and to have another president, but not the same person as formerly held the position, thereafter re-elected by the same council. These same two colonial councils were to be subservient to the full authority of who? The King's Council in England. The king, through his English council, not only requested but required that the members of the colony, with all diligence, care, and respect, do provide that the true word of God and the Christian faith be preached. So how y'all become Christians? How did you become Christians? How did you become Christians? How'd that Bible make it over here to the Americas? How what's up in that Bible is talking about over here in the Americas? Wasn't the first King James edition of the Bible issued in 1611? And this Virginia company was formed in 1606. So I'm going to ask again, how'd you become that Christian? How'd you become that Christian? You copper color people of the Americas, whom you started interacting with. The black Europeans, those swarthy ones of Europe. And start taking on their culture and of their religion, which was Christianity. Deep rooted, talking about those people that starts with a J and ends with an S. So I'm going to ask you again, copper colored people of the Americas, how did you become Christian? The king, through his English council, not only requested, but required that the members of the colonies, with all diligence, care, and respect, do provide that the true word of God and Christian faith be preached, planted, and used, not only within every of the several said colonies and plantations, but also, as much as they may amongst the whole, them savage people, you mean them savage copper-colored American Indians, which do or shall adjoin us to them or border upon them according to the doctrine, rights, and religion now professed and established within our realm of England. So I'm going to ask you again, you copper-colored people of the Americas, that know you are indigenous to the land. How you get that Christian doctrine? How can you possibly be the starts with a J, ends with an S, if you are indigenous to the land? How did all of that happen over here now? All of that they talk about up in that Bible. Oh, okay, then. Let's continue. Criminal law. All criminal offenses or offenses against the state or the king were tried, as has been said before, under admiralty law. The offenses or tumults, rebellions, conspiracies, mutiny, and sedition, which may be dangerous to the estate there, the degree of dangerousness being decided by the local council of authority. And murder, manslaughter, the R word, incest and adultery were all punishable by death, and except on the case of manslaughter, the conviction was not to be allowed the benefit of the clergy. All cases were to be tried by the council of authority before a jury of 12 honest and indifferent persons who were to either convict or acquit the accused. Should the accused confess the crime or remain mute in answer to his accusers, then he would be convicted as if the jury had deliberated and convicted him. The colony council also had the sole power of sentencing the convicted to death, but the ability of granting pardon to the convict was reserved solely by the king. When a criminal was suspended of having committed an offense outside the boundaries of the colony, could be brought back to the colony for trial. Okay, so I think that's what they call expedition today. Should any member of the colonies be kidnapped and removed from any of the colonies by outsiders, then the kidnapper, should he or they be caught, were to be imprisoned until he or they shall fully and thoroughly reform himself. Should this miraculous reformation not take place, then the malcontent were to be speedily exported to England, where he or they presumably be suitably punished by the king's pleasure. Okay, so extradite his ass back to England. Child, let me see. Oh, baby, this is a lot. We getting through it. I know I took y'all up the corner around the block, but I'm taking y'all that this way for a reason, because I want you all to enter and understand what these multi-glomerate companies, how the folks that are put on that seat ain't really running stuff. I want you to enter and understand how all of this stuff was set up. So be patient with me, family. Civil law. Any civil complaint. Now remember, this back up in all set up when they first started setting up the 13 original colonies. Remember, King James set up the first 13 colonies in the Americas via the Virginia Company. Yes, that King James, who is swarthy, who mom and them are the Stewarts and the Rosses. Civil law. Any civil complaints registered by the member of either colony were to be taken care of by the respective colonial councils as near to the common laws of England and the equity thereof as may be, and the local council shall have power and authority to hear and determine all and every other wrongs, trespass, offenses, and misdemeanors whatsoever, upon accusation of any person and proof thereof made by significant witness upon oath. And the councils were granted the authority to punish the offenders by reasonable corporal punishment and imprisonment, or else the convenient fine, awarding damages, I'm not going to read all of that. Okay, so pretty much same as civil court is set up today. Let's get on these warehouses. Is this how they settled the commerce? That money. For the first 5 years immediately after the initial settlement, the colonists were to bring all their produce and place it in a warehouse specifically constructed for the purpose. In addition to the local produce, everything thereafter brought to the colonies from England was also placed in the warehouse. So, baby, even the food that was grown about the ground, specifically on those plantations that indentured servants, i.e., workers, working off a debt on an indenture contract that they signed for at a maximum of 7 years. And those indentured servants made up of Black, swarthy Europeans, as well as white Caucasians. And then depending on the circumstances, you had some of the copper-colored people of the Americas, aka swarthy, tawny, aka black, were also on those plantations side by side. They would have had to been on those plantations side by side, because who would be able to teach the Europeans, whether black or white, how to grow produce on the land? Who better to teach them than the indigenous people of the Americas? So they were on those plantations as well, whether they were prisoners of war, some say AKA slaves, or they had some type of contract as well, employment agreement. Each year, the council was to elect a warehouseman named the treasurer or Cape merchant to take charge of and manage the commodities stored in his care. This person could be reelected by the council upon the expiration of his 1-year term of office. In addition, 2 bookkeepers were to be appointed, each also for a term of 1 year, to keep a register of all things being brought into the warehouse, and 1 to keep a similar book of all things being removed from it. Okay. Now, I'm sure I went over this before in another podcast, but just to keep reminding folk, because folks be forgetting, or either it don't sink in on how all of this is set up and who really runs things. They keep looking at the surface stuff, the public faces. They keep not wanting to remember whom the truly hidden hand is. So I apologize in advance for the folk that like you done went over this already, lady. I apologize in advance if I have in a podcast. Hold on a second. All right. To assist in trading to, from, and by this one warehouse, every one of the colonies for the first 5 years shall trade together in one stock. This meant that they were given royal orders to adopt to form warehouse banking, where the individual would take his product to the warehouse and place it on deposit there, receiving in return a receipt, which receipt could readily be traded for goods and services. This was the original form of paper currency, and it greatly facilitated trade and growth in the formative years of colonial existence. In order to keep a better check on the trading with the colonies, the first colonial council was required to choose 1 or more companies, each of not less than 3 people who resided in or close to London, England. And the second colonial council was to choose 1 or more similar companies, each of the 2 or more people from the town of Plymouth in the county of Devon, England. The purpose of each of these companies was to take charge of the trade and accounting of all goods which both went out and were received from its respective colony from whichever port or ports in England which was used for export or import, and all things concerning the managing of affairs and profit of the adventures of that respected company. So obviously, they had everything on lock. Don't sound like this was their first go around to me with getting this stuff set up. Finally, nobody was to allow to be admitted as an immigrant into any of the colonies unless they swore an allegiance to whom? To whom? To the king or the crown, an oath to the parliament, which also had sworn allegiance to the king, and an oath to the effect that they would always trade in and through the ports or ports which managed the trade within the colonies. So are y'all understanding the immigration requirements? Remember, this was back up in the 1600s. Okay? So as those swarthy, tawny, aka black Europeans, were coming over here, check the records. That's why it's important for you to do your genealogy. And if you keep going back, melanated, aka black folk, if you see people with England or Europe on your family's records, and a lot of times it may not even list the race. Sometimes on the U.S. Census, it will list the race, and you scratching your head, and it's black. More than likely it's accurate. You have to jump over to where it said they came from. Go pull the ship manifest. And then you can jump over to that European nation that they say they from. And you can find their records over there as well. I know because I've done it. Okay? But they had to, immigrants had to take an oath or an allegiance to the king or the crown. Just like today, when immigrants come to the United States of America, they have to take an oath and allegiance to the United States. The Royal Ordinance and Constitution, March 9, 1607, the first section of this ordinance enlarged the King's Council for the two colonies, and that because of the distance between the members of each of the councils, that the 12 men met together with 6 at least were to be members of the one colony, and 6 at least were to be members of the other colony, were to be considered enough persona or quorum to vote on any particular issue, and they were given power to vote upon broader and more reaching issues than ever before. So folks that want to talk about the Constitution today, you better do a little bit more research and know what you're talking about whom that Constitution or that contract or that ordinance is really talking about. The second charter of the Virginia Company, May 23rd, 1609, one of the secret corporations that is comprised of the secret, see family, I know I be going around the block up the street, just trying to dig and give you the root of the issue. Oligarchy, because remember this podcast is about, is Amazon and oligarchy. One of the secret corporations that is comprised of the secret oligarchy is the Virginia Company. In October 1781, when the Earl of Cornwallis capitulated to the British East Indian Company employee George Washington, the name of the Virginia Company was renamed. The new secret company was now called Sips Water. Hum, hum, hum. It's now called the United States of America Corporation and Body Politic. So now I'm finna say that again. You want to tell me what about the Constitution? What? You want to tell me about the Constitution and who it really benefits? Do your research. The term of the capitulation was that the secret corporation would continue in existence. When? How long did they say that the secret corporation which was originally the Virginia Company and it's renamed the what? The United States of America Corporation and Body Politics. How long was the secret corporation? Would continue forever. The arrangement that the king or queen of England would continue to receive how much? 20% of the revenues from the Virginia Company as per the old charter of what? 1607 again, forever. Forever, 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 ever, ever. You gonna run the kings, them they ends. So now you want to tell me what about the Constitution did what for whom when? The Pessoa family signed a contract with Benjamin Franklin in 1785 to handle all of the communication and transportation in the secret corporation again forever. So let me back it up. Back. The Pessoa family signed a contract with Benjamin Franklin in 1785 to handle all of the communication and transportation in the secret corporation again forever. So Benny was hired by the Pessoas. Now, let me just remind you, this the Benny who had wrote back to England when they wanted to send African slaves over to the Americas, that he didn't want it. Yeah, Go look it up. Because he said, everywhere he looked, they black people. Now, I'm paraphrasing, but go look it up for yourself, baby. He said, everywhere he looked, it was black people. He went all around the world. Asia, France, went all the way down the line. Germany, Italy. And even the Americas. He didn't say black, he said Swathi. Swathi means black. And that includes even in the Americas. Swathi. And including red. Yeah, them red. You mean that copper color tone? That they outnumbered the pure born white folk. They outnumbered the pure born white folk. So we don't need no more tawny Well, Africans aren't really tawny, which is brown. No more swarthy. So now how did millions of slaves come over on a boat from Africa? Which is why you cannot find those million slave ship manifests or records. Because it wasn't millions of Africans. The majority of the folks were them swarthy and tawny, black Europeans. And the millions were those copper-colored people of the Americas. Yeah, that Ben Franklin. So he was hired by the Paysours. The Crown Prince of France, Louis Charles Bourbon Capet, was made manager of the United States Corporation in 1805. At the time, the Crown Prince was 20 years old. Well, damn. Honey, I know he had to be somebody's nephew something to have that heavy responsibility at 20. He had been hiding in the city of London since both his parents were beheaded during the French Revolution. Okay, in 1793. Okay, that makes sense. So he was kin to the kings now. His father, Louis Charles Bourbon Capet. Child. Louis! Wait a minute, child. So that's Louis's real name? That's Louis the 16th, right? Oh, straight up. So Louis the 16th's real name, Louis Charles Bourbon Capet, and his mother were of pure, I'm not going to say that word, race bloodline, and Louis equals Charlemagne. Bloodline, Marie Antoinette von Habsburg. Bloodline, i.e. Queen Elizabeth II today. Now, I'm going to tell y'all this. When we did that, the Forgotten Black European Bloodline, we gave y'all receipts, we gave y'all pictures of the folk that he naming, with the exception of the Queen Elizabeth II today, were tawny, swarthy, aka black people. That's including King Louis. I call him Pimpalicious, because he stayed fly, stayed with his hair fried, dyed, laid to the MF inside. I showed you all a picture of Charlemagne, melanated, Marie Antoinette, with that German bloodline, von Habsburg. These were melanated, aka black, aka swarthy and tawny people. They are the original black European bloodlines, the forgotten black European bloodlines. You can check out the series, The Forgotten Black Nobility. Let's continue. Colonel Leroy Springs. The Payseur family lost control of the Virginia Company in 1933 when the company had to file for bankruptcy. Y'all understand what happened in 33, right? All of the executive orders issued by Roosevelt disenfranchised Louis Passeur's family from the corporation in 1933. Wasn't there like a big crash? The Depression, 1933. At the time, it was taken over by Colonel Leroy Springs, the founder of the spring-made, bed linen factory in Lancaster, South Carolina. As most of you know by now, the Hart brothers and their, I'm not going to say that, constituents used the electronic geometry from, I'm not going to keep that because he's going into other stuff. Saying weather manipulation. Oh, I'm not going to say all of that, child. Okay. So anyway, Colonel Leroy Springs' granddaughter is the main person in charge of the corporation and was the head of the what? The Federal Reserve Bank. Her name is Crandall Kloss Bowles. Yep, I read this before, y'all. I just never went all the way back to back, linking it all the way together. Okay, so old girl that was head of the Federal Reserve Bank, that's the family members of Camilla Parker Bowles, Prince Charles's wife. Okay, so they saying they don't know if she's still alive today, but she was on the Federal Reserve Bank of Charlotte, North Carolina, and was CEO of the Spring Made Bed Linen Factory. And remember that Leroy Springs was one of the trustees of the Pursuer stuff. The Federal Reserve Bank evolved out of North Carolina Gold Company charter in 1899 in Charleston, South Carolina, a First National Bank of Charlotte. All right, so I'm not going to go into that anymore. Let me see. All right. At any rate, the Federal Reserve Bank of Charlotte, North Carolina, made the secret electronic funds transferred to the City of London today. This is the 20% of the tax revenue that will forever go back to the Crown of England via the original contracts with the Virginia Company. The Moravian families, King James the First, I ain't going to go into what he's saying all up in there. Remember also the gateway to the sun. Okay, yeah. Get to the stuff. Because there were 48 Moravian families who signed on to the Virginia Company charter, so where are those signatures today? So when I think of Moravian, I think of out of Italy. In 1607, King James, born 1566, already knew that there were going to be 48 states in North America. He knew this because it is he who charted the Virginia Company. Each Moravian family was to have its very own state as its kingdom. So in other words, King James was already pretty much passed down the plan for the colonization of the Americas, which was really to set up commerce. All right. So the Moravian family, who that name today is still tied to big banking, was a part of that also. Okay. So they were probably part of the financiers behind that Virginia Company. Pope of Rome, there were some secret trusts executed with the Pope of Rome also, such as the state of Maryland. And I do believe that this is why they do this today, to keep the UCBO trust so secretive for the few. Oligarchical monarch control and rule of assets, which is why these trusts are not found in ordinary law schools. Absolutely. So like I said early on, trusts are private. They don't have to tell you an MFing thing. All right, family. I know that was a lot. I apologize up in advance if it was too much. But I just wanted for you to enter and understand. When you're saying these big conglomerate organizations, understand that who that public face they say founded and started that, there's a 99.99999% chance they did not. They are appointed in those positions. They are financed to start those companies by these particular European empires. Okay? So again, is Amazon an oligarchy? You think about it a little bit. So thank you much, family, for hanging in there with me, sweet peas. This is Rhonda from WTUZ Radio Podcast. I wish you well on this Wednesday. Peace and love, family.